Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is a screencast-o-matic presentation and recording for the part of the lesson that has us looking at the real cost of your phone. Before we get started, please let me encourage you to open up to today's lesson, to the correct section, and then get ready to answer the key concept questions that appear on the Google Doc that correspond to this reading. Before we get started, this reading is basically about the real cost of affording the technology that we have as Americans and understanding more about where some of the I guess you could say key minerals that go into making cell phones, specifically and other electronics, come from. So let's go and get started. And remember, you can replay any part of this presentation for detail or clarity later. The real cost of your phone. In the heart of Africa, miners as young as 7 risk their lives searching for cobalt, a key element in smartphones and other electronics that we use every day. Paul was just 12 years old when he was forced to start working in mines in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a country in Central Africa. Day after day, he descended hundreds of feet underground without any protective gear. Using a small chisel, he spent up to 24 hours at a time searching for cobalt, an essential component of the rechargeable batteries that power our smartphones, laptops, and other devices. Collecting cobalt is backbreaking and life-threatening work. At any moment, the mine's tunnels could have caved in, leaving Paul buried in an avalanche of rocks and dirt. Cobalt miners are also exposed to toxic materials that can cause cancer, lung disease, and other serious health problems. Last fall, an investigation by American journalists highlighted the hazardous conditions of the cobalt industry in the DRC, where 60% of the world's cobalt is mined. The report detailed a number of human rights abuses, including a lack of worker protections and the use of child laborers like Paul. In fact, here's a great example of what cobalt looks like, and in a sense, what it's turned into. In response, Apple and other tech companies vowed to clean up their supply chains and pay more attention to how the minerals in their products are obtained. But experts say problems surrounding cobalt mining won't be an easy fix. That's partly because demand for electronics and the cobalt that helps power them is on the rise. The amount of cobalt needed for battery manufacturing is expected to double by the year 2025. Cobalt is also used in paint, jet engines, and other products. Mark Dummett of Amnesty International, an aid organization, says the DRC must do a better job protecting cobalt miners' safety and make sure that kids aren't working in the industry. Consumers need to get involved too, he adds, by holding companies accountable. Millions of people enjoy the benefits of new technologies, but rarely ask how they are made, Dummett says. It is high time the big brands took some responsibility for the mining of raw materials that make their lucrative products. And if you're curious to know more, you'll find other videos and links on this page to help you understand that. A vital source of income. The DRC has some of the world's poorest countries, and around. According to the West Bank, 77% of the nation's population lives in extreme poverty, often defined as living on less than $1.90 a day. Many people there lack running water, access to electricity, and economic opportunities. But the country is also rich in natural resources. In addition to cobalt, the DRC has huge deposits of gold, diamonds, and copper. Mining these and other materials can be a vital source of income for hundreds of thousands of people. On a good day, for example, cobalt miners can earn $2 or $3 for their haul. That can be enough for workers to feed their families. Still, the risks associated with cobalt mining are huge. Many workers lack safety equipment such as helmets, gloves, and face masks. The work is very dangerous, says Benoit Nemery, a public health researcher in Belgium who has studied the DRC's mining industry. Accidents are common. Indeed, in 2014, 16 cobalt miners were killed in a landslide, and another 15 died in an underground fire. The following year, 13 people were killed when a mine collapsed. So child labor is common in the DRC. In 2012, the United Nations Children's Fund estimated that 40,000 kids work in the mining industry in the southern part of the country, mainly in cobalt and copper mines. Many of them are forced to work to help their families. One girl said she started mining at the age of 9 after her father lost his job and couldn't afford to feed her family. I could only eat when I had enough money, she said. Communities at risk. Even children who don't work in the mines are still exposed to toxic chemicals. Many kids sort through and wash pieces of cobalt brought up by the miners. Delphin Mutella, now 13, began helping his mother clean cobalt in a river when he was just 8 years old. He told reporters that he needed the money to help fund his education. The money I get, I use to buy notebooks and so I can pay school fees. People who work in the cobalt industry aren't the only ones in danger. Families that live near mines or cobalt processing areas are also exposed to hazardous elements through the foods upon which they eat, including fruits and vegetables. Crops can become contaminated when dust from the mines or from trucks transporting cobalt settles on the ground. Dangerous materials also make their way into yards and rivers, posing additional risk for people. To make matters worse, says Nemery, miners often find cobalt alongside uranium and arsenic. Uranium can damage kidneys, and arsenic can cause cancer. These communities are being exposed to a whole cocktail of toxic metals, he says. To help end the many abuses of the DRC's mining industry, experts say, the nation's government needs to better ensure worker safety. The country already has some laws protecting children, but they're rarely enforced. No easy fix. Following a 2016 story in the Washington Post about cobalt mining practices, some tech companies promised to re-examine their cobalt suppliers. Early this year, Apple announced that it had stopped buying cobalt mined in the hand of the DRC until it could verify the element which was collecting safely. But many other tech companies have also so far refused to acknowledge their part in the problem. Advocacy groups in the United States are pushing for tougher laws here at home. Many activists say American companies should be required to prove that the cobalt in their products is mined ethically and without the use of child labor. And in the meantime, Nemery says, it's important for consumers to educate themselves about how their favorite electronics are made. Our smartphones and computers, and many other products we use every day, he says, come at a very high human cost. And this diagram down here pretty much explains the dynamics and the realities of this situation upon which you mentioned, with the minerals being mined in the Congo, transported to China for the assembly of our cell phones and technology, and then also shipped to the United States later on for our consumption and buying. So in a nutshell, that's the story of African mining for cobalt in the Congo. Only time will tell how the world deals with this issue. Thank you very much for tuning in, and good luck with the rest of the lesson.